Welcome to the Speak Her podcast with your host, Camille Essick, the podcast where creators and innovators connect. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Camille Essick. I'm your host. Before we get into this episode, I'm so excited because this is the first episode I'm publishing, I'm releasing under my new media group, Golden Door Media. I'm so excited about it. If you want to know more about Golden Door Media, what it stands for, the origin of its legacy, go right now. Well, not right now, but after this podcast episode to CamilleEssick.com. Go to the menu and you'll see Golden Door Media, or you can just go to the landing page, scroll down, and you'll see the settings there for that. Hit learn more and read all about it. So I'm super, super excited about it. I may even do a separate podcast episode just to kind of sit down and talk to you all about that and why I just felt like it was so necessary to finally release it. But without further ado, we're going to get into the episode. And this episode is brought to you by InStep, and I'm so excited to have them as a sponsor. So shout out to Reese and Stanley Ponder for sponsoring. I really appreciate it. If you would like to be a sponsor and have your brand or business or even your ministry highlighted on any of the podcast episodes, just send me an email at the speakerpodcast@gmail.com and we'll go from there. So without further ado, I want to talk to you all about, this is a series, Black Women in Psychology regarding our self-esteem. And this is segment 1. We're talking about the foundation and just really where self-esteem and where does that begin. I want to take a moment before we even get into today's conversation because it's not just another episode. This is the beginning of the series that's kind of been sitting for a minute. I had it in my notes and it, going through some notes, and I was like, man, I really need to talk about this. Actually, I've had these notes since I was living in California, like 2016, 2017. So to put things in perspective, when you're going through notes, it's just amazing how some things can come back around to you. So, we're not just talking about success. We're not talking about branding, creativity, or showing up online. Here, I'm talking about the inner life of Black women. We're talking about self-esteem, not just the surface version, not just confidence for Instagram, but, the real question, how did we learn to see ourselves the way we do? Now, I really want to get into exactly why this really matters. So for a long time, I thought many of us have been functioning, not necessarily healing per se, but just on autopilot. And we've learned how to perform, how to achieve, how to carry, how to care and nurture for other people, how to show up. But very few spaces actually ask us, are you okay with who you are when no one is watching? And for Black women, this question hits differently because our identity is not shaped by, well, I should say it is. So our identity is shaped by so many layers, like our history, our culture, expectation, survival, faith, and responsibility. And sometimes those layers don't just shape us, they press on us, they weigh on us. So this series is about pulling those layers back, not to blame, not to shame, but to understand. And because you can't rebuild what you cannot first recognize. And so we're going to break that down. So getting into this, we are going to kind of unpack what we're covering in this series. So be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. So let's go ahead and dig in. So over the next several episodes, I'm gonna, walk through this with you together, and we're gonna talk about trauma and survival, community and comparison, the role of the Black church, the economy and how it shapes our sense of worth, education and the pressure to perform. We're also going to discuss, you all, the judicial system and how it impacts our sense of safety, pop culture, and how we're seen versus how we see ourselves, and even our health, like mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then we will end with something just as important. How do we rebuild? Because awareness without healing leaves you stuck. So, before we get into any of that, we do have to start at the beginning because self esteem doesn't just show up one day, it's formed over time. So, grab pen and paper and let's dig into this a little deeper. If you haven't done so, make sure you have pen and paper because you're going to need that throughout this series. So, what I need you to do is write down this question. And so the question becomes, where does self esteem begin? So there's early stages. So make sure you write down early stages, and you can also put in parentheses the foundation. So self esteem starts with, where you what you were taught, right? So before you even knew who you were, um, or being taught anything, it starts with what was said to you, also what was not said to you, what was modeled around you, and what was not modeled around you. And for many Black women, if we're just being honest, there was often a lack of consistent, intentional affirmation. Not because there wasn't love, because there was survival, right? There wasn't always you're beautiful, you're soft, you're allowed to be just a child, or even sometimes I love you, or even hugs. Instead, there was be strong, handle it, don't cry. You should know better. And when you look across the spectrum, especially when comparing to other groups like white girls, let's just be honest, um, there's often a difference in how affirmation shows up. It may be more verbal reinforcement. It could have even been physical, more emotional nurturing, more space to be soft and to stay soft. And that's a sharp contrast to what a lot of us got. And because you heard repeatedly, or you heard it so many times, you become what you believe. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't get addressed enough: the adultification of Black girls. Being called fast, grown, or too much at an early age where you're still figuring it out, who you were, what you want, what you desire, your identity. We were young, right? So being given responsibility early, and we all at an early age, not to say there's nothing wrong with that, but particularly if you are, especially if you were the eldest, you were given responsibility at a very early age. Being expected to get it early, being corrected more than you were receiving comfort. And over time, what happens? You stop seeing yourself as someone who is becoming, and you start to see yourself as someone who has already had to be everything. So instead of developing identity, you developed performance. Instead of asking, who am I? You started asking, what do I need to do to be accepted? Section two. Okay, so who told you who you were? Make sure you're writing this down. So, like at some point, whether we realize it or not, we all accepted a version of ourselves that was handed to us. And I want to ask you something, and I want it to really sit with you. Who told you who you were or what you were not? Was it your family, your environment, your church, your teachers, your experiences? And more importantly, did you ever question it, or did you just carry it? Because some of us have been walking around with identities that were never actually ours. They were assigned, they were projected, or formed in a response to pressure. So now what I want you to do is write this down: survival versus identity. Okay, so this is where it all connects. A lot of what we're calling personality is actually survival. being the strong one, the dependable one, the one who doesn't break, the one who always figures it out. But survival and identity are not synonymous. They're not one and the same. Survival says, do what you have to do to make it through. Identity says, this is who I am, even when I don't have to perform. And many Black women were never given the space to separate the two. So now as adults, we're asking questions like, why do I always feel like I have to prove myself? Why do I struggle to rest? Why do I feel uncomfortable being seen as soft? Because somewhere along the way, survival became your default and identity got pushed to the side. Okay, so I want you to take a moment and really think about this. What were you told about yourself growing up? Was it affirmed? Was it affirmed? And what was ignored? When did you stop feeling like you couldn't just be without performing? And the biggest one, who are you outside of what you had to become? So, okay, so this is just the beginning, and we haven't even touched trauma yet. We haven't unpacked community, church, or culture. But none of that makes sense if we first don't understand the foundation. Because the way you see yourself today didn't start today. It started early and it shaped over time. But here's the part I want you to hold on to. Just because something was formed doesn't mean it's permanent. You can question it, you can unlearn it, you can rebuild it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it together in this series. So if this episode made you think, if it made you pause, if it made you feel seen, what I want you to do is share it with another Black woman or a Black woman that you love that you feel like needs to hear this. And because these conversations matter, we don't have enough space where we can have them honestly, and we're going to do that here. So until then, I'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Speak Her podcast. Be sure to follow Camille on Instagram at camille.essick, Facebook at the Speak Her podcast, or www.camilleessick.com.
It's the Speak Her podcast. Can we be your ear candy?